It's got like a nice crumb that looks like cake, but it just melts in your mouth. Let's give it a go.
So before we get started making this cake, where did it come from? Well, Flourless chocolate cakes originated in France and Austria, and they're comprised traditionally of 3 main ingredients, those being chocolate, eggs, and sugar. So with so few ingredients, we rely heavily on the technique in which to make them, and of course the ingredients' functionality. But today we're making it completely eggless and plant-based. So we're going to have to use some ingredients that are going to replace those functions, and I'm going to go through all the steps today. I don't know about you, but if you've ever searched the internet for a flourless chocolate cake which is without eggs and without dairy, it's very hard to come by something that resembles the traditional chocolate flourless cake that we know and love. But I'm going to show you today how you can easily do it at home or for your business. Now, with the traditional version of this cake, it relies solely for its structure from the eggs. But of course, we're not going to be using eggs today. We're going to be using a completely plant-based and vegan egg replacer, which has all the same functions that we know and love from traditional eggs. And we're going to be whipping it up into a foam to incorporate into this chocolate cake. So another very unique thing about this cake is, of course, the texture. So think of a truffly mousse-like texture. So it's very, very unique. You have many different textures throughout the cake. It's very rich, but not heavy. And we're also going to be pairing it today with some wine poached pears and a beautiful chantilly cream infused with Earl Grey tea. So I hope you love it as much as I do. Let's get started making this cake. So the first step of making this flourless chocolate cake is we need to melt our butter, or in my case, I'm using a vegan margarine or dairy-free alternative, and chocolate. Now with the chocolate that you use, it is important that you get one with a minimum of 60% cocoa solids. Now the reason this is important is the chocolate is going to play a role in the structural aspect of creating this cake. It is very much of a balance to get the texture just right. So do make sure to check the back of the pack when you are purchasing your chocolate that you get something with a minimum of 60% cocoa solids. So I've just got a saucepan of some boiling water. I'm going to switch that off now. It's already come to the boil. And I'm just going to sit my chocolate and margarine on the top of there so it can slowly melt down. Now, while that is melting, we can prepare our tin for this cake. So I've decided to go ahead with a 22 centimeter cake pan. And this one does not have the removable bottom. I just find it's a little bit easier with working with a water bath to ensure that no water gets inside. Now, the first thing that I want to do to grease it is I actually want to put a little bit of oil down first. So when this cake cools, the oil's not going to solidify, so it'll be easy to get the paper part up. Now we're going to create some strips for around the sides. So we want something like as wide. Okay, you can pop those around the sides. Okay, great. Now we just need to make the circle for the bottom. So I like to just flip it over. And I'm just going to make like a rough square. Then you just want to fold that in half and then in half again. Again. And then just pop your center of the paper in the center of your cake tin. And we're going to make it just a little bit bigger, just slightly, maybe like half a centimeter, a few millimeters. Okay, so once that's down, I have some softened butter or margarine. And we're going to go in with that because I find that this just works a little bit better for this part. And around the sides. Now we're going to go in with a little bit of cocoa powder. So I'm putting maybe, I don't know, like about a tablespoon in there. And we just want to coat softened margarine or butter. So now we're going to be creating our egg foam for this recipe. Of course, we're not using eggs, we are using panis egg today. And one of the incredible functions of panis egg is it foams. So panis egg is a whole egg replacer that is really going to elevate this particular cake. It's going to give a lot of function when we are not using flour. So with the panis egg, it's going to help to hold onto the gas. It's going to also bind our cake together, emulsify all of the fat in this recipe and create a delicate texture. So to do that, I've measured everything out here. I've got my panis egg powder ready to go. Now what we're going to do is add about 20% of our sugar that we've measured out. So I'm just going to grab a spoon and we're going to put about 20% of it in there, which is roughly, I would say, maybe a couple of tablespoons. And I'm just going to mix that together just to help to disperse the powder. Now that's all mixed up, we're going to add that to our water measurement, along with some vegetable oil. Now the vegetable oil is going to create a really nice texture to the cake, but also start the emulsification process with our egg replacer. And I also have a little bit of vanilla paste here too. Now we're going to beat this together until our vegan egg has foamed and has doubled in size. And I'm using a medium speed. You can notice the egg foam, our vegan egg foam, it's already maybe 1.5 times the size. We're incorporating thousands of little air bubbles to create that signature texture. Now if you're finding that your vegan egg is not foaming, you may need to switch to a smaller bowl. If you don't have enough volume, it's going to be really difficult for you to whip your vegan egg. That's why I'm tilting my bowl on its side so I can really get the beaters in there. Now it's been a couple of minutes and our vegan egg has doubled in size. We're going to slowly start incorporating the remainder of our sugar, probably about 1 or 2 tablespoons at a time, and again beating on medium speed for a couple of minutes in between each addition until it's nice and foamy. Okay, so I'm really happy with the texture. It's going to not be like as stiff as a meringue, but kind of like a soft peak, like where the, you know, like the peaks are flopping over. A little thicker than the ribbon stage on a traditional whole egg. That's completely normal. Panis egg's always going to be slightly thicker. So I'm just checking my chocolate. We want to make sure that it's between 30 and 45 degrees. We don't want it too hot or too cold, otherwise we're going to seize up our plant-based egg foam. Okay, so it's actually at 44 at the moment, which is totally fine. Now I'm going to add about 1/4 of my egg foam to the melted chocolate and margarine. And we want to mix this vigorously. Make sure we have a good emulsion. You could even use those beaters again. Actually, I might pop those back on just so we get everything really well combined. Now we're going to add this to our vegan egg foam. And we're going to fold everything together. We want to try and keep as much of that air in the vegan egg foam as possible. Okay, that's looking great. The cocoa powder, I just want to make sure that I sift that so there's no lumps. We have our almond meal and salt. So there's no leavening agents in this cake. We're relying solely on our plant-based egg foam to create the leavening or the texture of this cake. So now we can add our dry ingredients and we just want to fold everything together. We don't want to overwork the batter because we don't want to lose that beautiful foam. So just be very gentle when you're folding everything through. And I'm just turning the bowl as I go.
Okay, that's looking great. Now I'm just going to go and grab my prepared tin and we can pop that inside. So now I've got our tin all greased and floured. We can put our batter in. And I just want to level off the surface. Give it a little tap. So I've got my oven preheating. So we're going to set this aside for about 15 minutes while it's preheating before we put it into the oven with our water bath. So we have our cake all ready to go into the oven. It's preheated now. And I've just put it in a roasting tray. My roasting tray is pretty small, but still fits. We're going to fill this up with some water. You want to do it like maybe 2/3 to 3/4 of the way. And I've already boiled some water here. So I'm going to carefully pop that in and into your oven. All right, about 40 minutes, and then we're going to keep an eye on it. I am using a convection oven, so sometimes it can tend to dry out a little bit, or you may need to top up the water. So we're just going to keep an eye on it and check back in about 40 minutes. So I've just checked the internal temperature of the cake and we're already there. So I'm just going to let it cool in the water bath in my oven for about 30 minutes or so before I take it out to cool to room temperature, cover and put in the fridge overnight.
So I'm going to start preparing my Earl Grey mascarpone chantilly. And all I have here in a container is my whipping cream, so you can do a dairy-free like I'm doing today. And I'm going to be adding some Earl Grey tea. So you can use the measurement in the recipe, or I'm actually just going to put these 4 bags in there. And I actually like to get the tea out and get it really into the cream. I like the look of it as well. Even after we strain it, we still get a few little specks of the tea, which is really nice. And the flavor from the tea goes so beautifully with this cake. It really cuts through the richness and it has those citrus notes from the bergamot. I'm just adding a little bit of vanilla paste, or you could use also vanilla extract. And I just want to mix all of that together. And we're going to cold infuse this into the fridge. And I find doing it this way, you don't get any harsh tannins from the tea. You just get all the beautiful subtle notes from the bergamot, and you get the tea flavor without the harshness. So I'm gonna pop that in the fridge now, and then tomorrow we can finish preparing our chantilly. Okay, let's put it in the fridge. So we're gonna finish up making our Earl Grey mascarpone chantilly. And I've had my Earl Grey tea infusing into the cream overnight. So I don't really mind too much if I get some of the leaves in there. So I'm going to strain this, but we'll probably get some leaf. Okay, so that's all strained now. Now that's all strained, I'm going to whip my cream to like just before a soft peak. When you notice your cream is starting to thicken, just stop and we're going to check it. So I think just a tiny bit more. I think that's good. We still want it to be quite soft because our cream cheese is really going to seize up that cream a little bit and make it firmer. Now, I know we're not using mascarpone in this recipe. Mascarpone tends to be one of those things that you can't get all over the world, and right here in Greece, it's very, very difficult to find, and especially to find it plant-based as well. So we're using cream cheese in replacement and then more cream to create something which is going to resemble like a mascarpone. So I have in my bowl here some cream cheese. You can use a dairy-free option. I really like the VO Life product. And to that, I'm going to add a little bit of glucose syrup. Now the glucose syrup is going to help stabilize our cream cheese and the cream together so it doesn't split as easily and create just a really good emulsion and texture. So I'm going to add that, and then we also have some confectioner's sugar as well. I find I don't really need to sift it for this recipe. Now we want to beat this until it's really nice and smooth. So I'm just going to use my same beaters on a low speed. Now once your cream cheese and sugar and glucose is completely combined and nice and smooth, we're gonna add the whipped cream in additions. So I'm gonna add, I don't know, maybe like 1/4 cup or so, and just fold it through. Want to incorporate it slowly so we get a nice good emulsion and everything's combined well. I'm gonna add another addition, another spoonful. Okay, now we've got to this stage. It's safe to add all of it back to our whipped cream. And we're just gonna fold everything gently together. All right, let's do a taste test. You can really taste the tea in there and the bergamot coming through at the end from the Earl Grey. It's gonna go perfectly with the cake that I wanna pair it with today. So just pop some cling wrap over the top. And we're gonna pop this into the fridge until we're ready to serve it with our cake. So let's poach some pears. We are doing pears today in a white wine poaching liquid with a little bit of vanilla and orange for flavor. So I've gone ahead and picked out some pears. These are some ones that are currently in season where I'm located. They are a little bit smaller and I'm using 8 today, but if you're using larger pears, you probably only need 4. So the first thing we're going to do is start peeling all of our pears. And I like to keep the stem on. I think it looks really beautiful for presentation. So we're going to keep that intact. And I'm just going to trim the end off. Now we're going to carefully cut these in half. And I want to try and keep some of that stem. There we go. Perfect. Now we need to scoop out where the seeds are. Now you can use a melon baller, or I've got these measuring spoons which are a good size. So I'm going to use that to scoop out, and it just makes it look a lot prettier too. You want to use something a little citrusy or lighter, like a Sauvignon Blanc. I'm here in Greece and this is the type of wine which is made from pine resin. It has a pine resin flavor to it. It still has made from grapes, but it has also pine resin notes to it. So it has kind of a citrusy aroma and it's perfect for this. So we're going to use 400 grams or most of this bottle along with some water. And I'm using some raw sugar or demerara. I just think it adds a nice flavor that complements the wine and also the pears. We have some orange peels, and I just used my speed peeler to peel a couple of pieces for some flavor. And we have a little bit of vanilla paste. Now we just want to melt down that sugar. I've just got it over a medium heat. So while that's warming up, we're going to create what's known as a cartouche, or essentially it's just kind of like a makeshift lid. And we're going to do that with some baking paper and a pair of scissors. So we just want to take a sheet of baking paper that's at least as wide as our saucepan, and you just want to fold it and then fold it again. Remember, that's the center of our paper. And then fold, fold, and then we can create like a circle. Cut that end, and then we have like a rough circle. I'm also going to cut a little hole in the center, so I've just folded it back up, and we're going to cut maybe like a centimeter. So we'll open it back up, and we've got a little hole in the center. And that's going to keep all of our pears submerged in the poaching liquid. Okay, so that sugar has dissolved. We can start putting our pears in. So I've just got them here in some water and lemon juice or a little citric acid just to stop them from browning before we pop them into this poaching liquid. And I'm just going to drop them in. So now we can go in with our cartouche and just have it contact that poaching liquid. So we want that on a really nice gentle heat for about 20 minutes. We're going to check until it's nice and tender before we remove it from the heat. So my pears are lovely and soft. So I'm going to carefully pop these into a container.
With this leftover liquid, we're actually going to bring it up to the boil and we're going to reduce it by half to create a thicker syrup. And I've left my orange peel in there as well. So I've just cooked until it's reduced by half. My alarm's going off because I've also put in your recipe, you can cook it until 104 degrees Celsius. So if you find that a little bit easier, you can do that. And now we're just going to pour over our pears. And I kept my cartouche, I'm going to put that over the top as well, just so everything stays submerged in there. So we're going to leave this uncovered to cool before we store these into the fridge. And these will last at least a few weeks. They are fantastic as garnishes for your cakes, or you can enjoy them with some yogurt or whipped cream, however you like. So there you go, guys. That is our poached pears in white wine and orange zest and vanilla. So I've had my flourless chocolate cake resting in the fridge overnight. I've just taken it out of the fridge and it's been sitting outside for about 30 minutes, but essentially we want to bring it up to around 16 to 18 degrees Celsius. This is the best temperature to slice. So I've just got an offset spatula and I'm going to go underneath the baking paper and just run my knife around. I just want to make sure that it's going to release very easily. Now we're going to invert it first onto either a plate or I'm just using a cake board. So using the oil to grease first really helps to release it. So I'm going to take off the paper now, just very carefully. I'm going to dust a little bit of cocoa powder on the bottom of the cake just so it's going to be easier to release. Now we're going to go in with some more cocoa powder over the top. Now we have our cake already. We're going to cut some slices. And this cake will serve about 8 or 10. And I've just got some warm water here in a jar, just for my knife. And you want to make sure that you swipe between each cut. Make sure your knife is nice and dry. So now we're going to add our pears. And I've just heated these up just for about 45 seconds in the microwave, just to make sure that they're served warm. I think 3 pieces should be enough. And I reduced some of the poaching liquid into a syrup. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that over the top of my pears as well, just to give them a nice sheen. And we're going to go and add some of our cream. And for a little bit of color, you can add some flowers if you want. I thought I'd add a little bit of rose petals, just to make this a little bit more romantic and kind of pick up some of the floral notes in our Earl Grey tea. So there we go, guys. That is our completely gluten-free and eggless chocolate cake. Doesn't it look absolutely decadent? I think that this dessert would look fantastic on a autumn or winter menu. It's got those bright flavors from the bergamot coming through with the Earl Grey cream. We've got the deep chocolate rich cocoa notes and of course our wine poached pears. Okay, let's go in and see the texture of this cake. It's got like a nice crumb that looks like cake, but it just melts in your mouth. Let's give it a go. It really does just melt in your mouth. It's absolutely delicious. It's kind of cross between like mousse, custard, pudding, but it still has a little bit of like a cake texture and then a light, crisp meringue texture on top. Let's try it with everything else so we can get a little bit of a bite. We have our warm wine poached pears and our Earl Grey chantilly and a little bit of our cake. The flourless chocolate cake itself is very decadent, but it doesn't feel heavy. It's just got really beautiful, rich chocolate notes. And then when you eat it with the pear and the Earl Grey tea, it just cuts through any richness and you get this beautiful light floral and citrus notes all through it. I hope you enjoy this recipe and I will see you in the next one. Bye.